In our last video, we broke down the core principles of sampling. Today, we'll shift gears and make it practical, exploring how to see those options in action and configure them directly in the platform. If the out-of-the-box setup feels limiting, this walkthrough will show you how to take control. Let's dive into the platform itself. I'll guide you to the key views where you can track ingestion and indexing volumes, and highlight exactly where optimization opportunities reveal themselves. The first place to check for volume in APM is ingestion control. Once you land here, look at the top right panel. It shows the key metrics. For example, you will see how much was consumed in the past hour, and its estimated impact on overall billing based on your quota. In this example, it's less than 1% of my quota, since I only have a single host. For more detail, open the estimated usage dashboard. It breaks down activity from past months and any time frame you select, using the collected metrics. It's a great way to see exactly where your volume is coming from and understand usage trends. You can also review the billing view, which shows how past months were impacted and helps you understand exactly what you're paying for. These numbers are your first checkpoint. If you're above 100% and unhappy with the spend, start here. If you're not satisfied with your ingestion volume, you can always tweak configurations or turn on adaptive sampling. Everything we've covered in these last two videos. But before changing anything, first check which service is actually responsible. When looking at a service, focus on three key metrics. Traces per second being ingested bytes or how much data originates from this service, and downstream bytes, which show how much volume is impacted when the service decides to sample or keep a trace. Services generating high volumes here may be creating loops or unnecessary noise, and since downstream impact cascades across other services, these numbers are what really matter. Those numbers are critical. In this example, this service has the biggest impact on overall volume. So the next step is to identify what mechanisms are in place to control its ingestion. Let's open the service to see its decision making. Here, everything is set to automatic, no head-based sampling or custom rules. Right now, this service is the decision maker for its own pipeline, meaning it's controlling sampling choices for itself. This is useful because if I want to control it, I know the sampling rule must be set at this specific service level. But I can also see two other sources driving traffic and ingestion volume, Datadog.EU and .com. These are synthetic services, traffic generated by automated tests that are hitting my service. The auto setting here refers to static pipelines, where everything has been left on automatic configuration. The two graphs I recommend checking first are these. They reveal the reasoning behind ingestion decisions. For example, here we're on auto, but if a sampling rule, like error-only or rare trace sampling, were active, you'd see which mechanism was driving the decision. This helps you pinpoint where to focus and which config to edit to have the most relevant impact. The next graph is also important. It shows whether decisions come from pipelines or are split across services, calling a single dependency. A common example is a shared database or authentication service being hit by multiple upstream services, each with its own sampling logic. Because each upstream service may apply different sampling rules, this graph gives you a breakdown of which one ultimately drives the biggest decision for trace retention. In another setup with more services, the view looks different. For example, here's a service generating 583 bytes per second on its own, but because of downstream impact, it's responsible for nearly 96 bytes per second overall. Looking deeper, I can see the main ingestion ratio here is 2. This service is its own decision maker, but if I shift focus to the service proxy, I can see it accounts for 72% of the volume, driven in part by calls from the storefront service. So in this case, the service we're analyzing shows 26.9% because the storefront service has already made a sampling decision upstream. To dig deeper, you can continue tracing through other services. For example, if I'm unhappy with the volume on my progress service, I'd investigate which upstream services are making the keep or drop decisions. This kind of analysis gives you visibility and helps shape a better ingestion and sampling strategy. You can apply the same approach on the retention side. With retention filters, you'll see all the rules in place and which ones are keeping the most traces. From there, you can fine-tune those rules to keep more or fewer, depending on your goals. That's why it's crucial to have clear ownership. If a specific rule starts generating more spans than expected, you can quickly reach out to the owner, maybe ping them on Slack, and ask them to adjust and reduce the span rate. All right, time to bring it all together. Here's the complete path we've followed, watching a trace from its very first span all the way through to the final retention decision. Here's a step-by-step recap. Head-based sampling, auto, is the default. The Datadog agent aims for approximately 10 complete traces per second per agent, a flexible, traffic-aware target, not a hard cap. The route span makes the keep or drop decision and propagates it downstream for full consistency. Sampling rules override head-based behavior. You can fine-tune them per service or endpoint. Use dd_trace_sampling_rules to define deterministic rules for route spans. Error and rare sampling act as guardrails. The error sampler captures up to 10 error traces per second, even if the head sampler dropped them. The rare sampler keeps up to 5 low-frequency or unique traces per second based on tags like NV, service, or status. Retention filters extend span indexing beyond 15 minutes. The default intelligent retention filter applies a 1% flat rate with diversity sampling. You can also add custom retention rules to index spans with specific tags for longer-term access. Adaptive sampling helps you stay on budget. Set ingestion targets by GB month or by APM host percentage. Datadog then auto-adjusts every approximately 10 minutes, while guaranteeing at least one trace per service, resource, and environment every 5 minutes. Tail-based sampling applies true post-completion filtering. You decide after seeing the full trace, errors, latency, business tags. Just weigh the trade-offs in cost and complexity before using it. And that's it, your full toolkit for accurate, cost-conscious observability. Start with agent-managed head-based sampling. Add overrides for your critical paths. Always capture errors and rare events. Index the traces you truly need long-term. Keep budgets in check with adaptive sampling. And turn to tail sampling when end-of-trace context really matters. That's the complete picture of sampling. Now it's your turn. Review your setup, adjust a few knobs, and see how it changes your visibility. Drop a comment with what you discover. And remember, smart sampling gives you clarity without runaway bills. For more best practices, hit subscribe. And as always, happy monitoring.